That night, the Mortar and Tomahawk missile were drunk, a new successor learned from Blade and Dark, mastering a skill that didn't belong to his rank. His MAG B850M Mortar finally emerged. This 80% PCB max has 3 M2 slots PCIe 16, which is rarely placed in the first slot. Additionally, it has a button-style graphics card, quick-release front solid-state armor. It also has tool-free installation, full-blooded Wi-Fi 7 and 5G interface, enough network configuration to handle 9950X3 DPPO's 12-phase power supply, and over 8200 MHz memory overclocking. The most extraordinary thing, it is just like the big brothers. It supports 192GB memory filled up and runs at 6400 MHz. This time I specifically bought a set of 192GB to verify and test. Every time adjusting the baking machine, it takes days, took a long time, but for this time's Mortar? After such a long time, what was adjusted before it was presented? This video, let's take a taste. First is the appearance part. This generation of mortars looks fierce, black base tone with black silk screen and some bright green to embellish. Design style can be rated 4 out of 5. The motherboard power armor all have slots to increase the cooling area. Pressed underneath is a 12+2+1 power core using 60 amp Dr. Moss. Sai, compared to the previous generation's 83, why is it moving backward? We pull up the currently strongest processor 19950X3D for a machine baking test, with PBO enabled after half an hour of FPU development platform without active cooling from chassis fans. The power supply temperature of Dr. Moss stabilizing at 79 degrees with the 250W 9953 is entirely doable. The key is your cooling, making sure the 99531 can run at peak load. This A105360, because it uses this flat copper base, it's friendly to AMD, can press 250-9953 to just over 90 degrees. This time's Mortar utilizes 8 layers of PCB. I don't know how much the cost will increase, but for the downward CPU direct connected PCIe 5.0 M2 slot, 80% PCB is crucial. Otherwise, the signal lines could easily affect the first slot's 5.0 XMT. Theoretically, the mentioned full 192GB memory slots, even 256G, rely on this 80% PCB. This graphics card slot in the first position can be said to meet many players' rigid demand. Many slightly compact max cases, after plugging in the massive current graphics cards, the bottom cannot fit any fans, so it may cause the only air inlet of the case to be blocked. Another thing is, when using graphics cards smaller than 3 slots, the very bottom 4.0 grade slot won't be blocked wasted. Used for plugging in a solid-state drive or capture card won't make this max used like an iTex. Button-style graphics card, quick release, every press is very decompressing. Equally decompressing is the memory overclocking, which is generally the pleasure of the second round. I finally experienced the climax of the chorus, the satisfaction after everything is filled. The key is that it can still run at 6400 MHz frequency, which is quite amazing. I guess the product manager must have debated for a long time whether to let this mortar fill up and run at 6400 MHz. You know, the Golden Bound 48G X2 I bought this time, counting as a 96G kit, even the relatively cheap ones cost 2,000 yuan per pair, which is more expensive than the Mortar, adding up to 4,000 yuan, almost the price of a 19950. However, this set of Hynix Endai preset by Jingbang is not bad, 6000 C314 1916 135V. Even if ESPO doesn't press timing, with MSI Motherboard's efficiency enhancement, there are no obvious shortfalls. Just that, buying 2 pairs separately like me, it's better to ask the customer service to send them in the same batch for better compatibility. Jingbang is a brand I discovered when buying SSDs some time ago. Isn't there a rumor that SSD prices are going to rise? So every time I went to Pinduoduo and bought something, I found it was pretty good, then I bought a G7T to stock up. You know, they are old brands, but they haven't promoted much in China. Maybe they saved on advertising costs, which is why they are so cheap. You know, the price of a pair from the neighbor competitor can hold up 2 of them, but it's not important. The target users are different types. The main thing is to see how this B850M mortar can handle 192G. First is the basic stability. After a long 3.5 minute wait for fully inserting 4 sticks for the first time, loading ESPO preset and then waiting for 3.5 minutes again, the memory self-test battle ended in about 7 minutes. I tested it on the competitor's motherboard, 7 minutes it can finish. The speed gap for the first quality check is quite terrifying. On an open platform without active cooling fans, the MD stress test took nearly 6 hours to complete the first over 100% memory coverage test. Although the voltage is 1.35V, inserting 4 double-sided memories together makes it really hot. The highest temperature detected by the software reached 80 degrees. The middle two sticks averaged 5 degrees hotter than the left and right without errors, but the performance of just SPU memory is average. Latency reached 83 nanoseconds, then enabling the memory enhancement mode on the motherboard panel. Memory latency can be reduced to 73 nanoseconds. The most important thing is it can also run without fans. Through stress testing, we directly increased compression intensity, timing to C28-3696, which is the competitor's special tuning, voltage increased to 1.4V plus memory fans. With heaven-defying tuning, the memory latency can be reduced to 70 nanoseconds, directly using mat stress test. Baking it for 18 hours can also pass stably. Actually, at the beginning, I had no confidence in these two, using 1.45V with 9953 test once, 4.5 hours. After discussion with Master Rhodes, I found no need for such high voltage. Just replaced with 9700 and tested again, excluding the intermediate faltering, C28-3696 timing, tested minimum 24 hours. At this point, I felt confident and started to challenge 1992G 6400 MHz. After loading the 6470-28 preset into memory and running the system, our current memory color is around 62 nanoseconds. It's amazing. But the preset voltage is set to 1.5 volts. Honestly, playing with 192G like this is a bit intimidating. I maintained the SPU 6000 frequency with C34-19-16 timing at 1.45 volts, added a reverse gun, plus MSI's latency killer to make the latency a bit more impressive. This combination brought the memory latency down to around 66 seconds, and the read-write speed hit the single CCD 6400's maximum. After a 12-hour stress test, even with memory fans, the memory temperature reached above 45 degrees. So, you understand why the voltage drops to 1.5 volts. It feels a bit taxing for the mortar's small form. After 16 hours on the M stress test, I stopped because there wasn't enough time to make the video. Even though the video only lasts a few minutes, the testing process takes considerable time and effort. Every stress test takes at least half a day. If it goes smoothly, all is well. But any error means you have to start over. Once I ran a test overnight and found out the next day that the screen wouldn't light up, so I kept the screen on. Another night of testing, and the next morning I discovered that a Microsoft update caused it. I learned to disconnect from the internet during a 192G large capacity test. The entire test took almost a week, so please consider giving me a triple like. After reviewing memory, let's check other aspects. Many people finish with a smooth ESPO. The storage offers 3 endpoint 2s, 2 on the front and 1 on the back. I looked and the chipset heatsink and quick release GPU left no space for a third endpoint .2. The two front M2 slots are CPU direct connected, supporting 5.0x4. With the Ryzen 8000 processor, they can only reach PCIe 4.0 speeds. They have thermal pads for dual-sided chips, and tool-free installation and quick-release heatsinks make the experience very smooth. The back endpoint .2, due to the B850 chipset main channel, only supports 4.0x2 speeds. On the bright side, it serves as physical cooling for the back SSD. In real use, there's no noticeable difference unless you use the 3.0 SSD running X2, where you might notice during Windows transfers. 4 SATA interfaces are standard. All storage interfaces are full speed, including the bottom PCIe 4.0 slot. The rear I/O has a 7A2C combo. One of the C ports is 10 GPS directly connected to the CPU, while the 20 GPS C port is provided by the chipset. There are 3 red A ports with 10G in speed, alongside 4 blue ports at 5G speed. Perhaps you might consider exchanging a red port to add extra USB 2.0 for peripheral devices, thereby creating a more equitable setup. It facilitates 8K 60Hz output, yet is missing a DB port, UFlash BIOS, and clear CMOS, which could be essential for enthusiasts. The 5G LAN port is from the small crab 8126 Wi-Fi 7. Supports a maximum rate of 5.8G fully powered and supports Bluetooth 5.4. Note that it can only be achieved on Windows 24 H2. The sound card is also the Realtek 4080, a typical combination. The Type-C external I/O port has a speed of 10 Gbps. A USB 3.0 and 2 USB 2.0 expansion chipsets, that's about all it can offer. There are 6 fan interfaces in total. If you buy the new MSI water cooling system like the A15 tested here, it comes with a JF1 interface, which can utilize this connection. One set of fan and RGB header pins is saved. The RGB provides 4 headers, 1 12V and 3 5V RGB headers placed at the lower left and right corners. Additionally, there's a 5V header above the quad camera debug light. The socket above the 24-pin connector will test your cable management skills. The MSI B850M mortar looks pretty well rounded. For more insights, check out reviews from other influencers. Essentially, you won't encounter any major shortcomings. The MSI Center's lighting effects need work though. While the hardware is solid, the software requires improvement. It feels like it took forever for the mortar to launch. Not sure if that's good or bad. The CPU, especially the 3D model, is dropping in price, while high-end GPUs are also slowly getting cheaper. However, RAM and SSD prices seem to be rising. So would you consider this mortar for your new build? Good food is worth the wait, right? If you have any questions or opinions, feel free to share them in the comments. If you found the video useful, please show your support with a like, comment and subscribe. This is your Cantonese speaking yes.
Sister,